With apologies to Thomas Dolby, the problem is no longer she blinded me with science. It's that we've become blind to science, and it's going to kill us. On that cheery note, stick around for Radically Rational, the podcast. Hello and welcome to this podcast for Radically Rational. At Radically Rational, as you know, we're bringing facts back into fashion. We're making simple sanity sexy again. Remember, we're not crazy. You are. These are the basic tenets, and if I don't follow them, I will get busted by an 8-year-old girl.
Did it take you all day to come up with that?
So now we know what the rules are. So much looking forward to this. We get to kick it with one of my favorite guys in the universe. So eclectic, so well-read, so passionate, and so informed on so many subjects. I'm talking about San Antonio media personality, Chris Duel. And Chris, I'm going to say media personality in the generic sense because you've done so darn many things. It's just amazing. You know, you have what I think is a wonderful thing. You have such a wide scope of interests and such a wide range of passions, and it's really reflected in everything you do.
And I've never had a real job in my life, which is kind of fun for me, but a little weird. And like you, I've done what I love to do, which often has been either news talk or sports talk or a show on KLRN about science. And it goes back to that whole Joseph Campbell thing that I've always appreciated. He says, follow your bliss.
Absolutely.
Follow your passion. So
and what's the old line? If you really love what you do, you never work a day in your life.
True. That's been my experience.
Well, there's not a better listen anywhere than the Chris Duel Show on the Ticket 760 in San Antonio. And I know you and I share so many views on this, but the great thing about sports is that it's about so much more than sports.
Yes, I had a guy on the show today, Haas Holding, who is 60 years old, and at the age of 57, overweight, out of shape. His dream was always to become a professional wrestler. So at the age of 57, he went into a gym, he got a trainer, and he's now a professional wrestler. So to me, that's a life lesson. That wasn't just a sports story. That's a story for any of us who has a dream. If you still have a dream, no matter how old you are, and you have a burning passion for that dream, you have got to find a way to go do that.
Well, because you're cheating yourself and others if you don't.
Yes.
Okay, so I know that we're both really troubled by the degree of tribalism in this country right now. It's beyond tragic. It's totally inexplicable. But we share a passion for sports. And Chris, it seems to me that we see two things reflected with respect to the tribalism and the pandemic and sports. On the one hand, it may be, and this is a good thing, that sports is the last remaining topic that members of different tribes can have a conversation about. But on the other hand, with respect to the people in sports, the people who play sports, the people who run sports, we see the very same cultural divides there as we do in society at large.
We do. It's a microcosm, and it's football season now, and you and I talk a lot of football on the radio, and Paul joins me every Friday at 7:05, and it's the best segment we do.
It's the most fun I have all week, I can tell you that.
Shannon and I, we have just a blast with you. But you're so right. You can be far right or far left or far on the planet Mars, and if you're a Bears fan, you're wearing a Sweetness Walter Payton t-shirt today, or if you're a Cowboys fan or a Spurs fan, we can all come together and we can agree we love our team. Yet, in football season, I'm thinking about Cole Beasley on the Buffalo Bills, former Cowboy, SMU guy. I'm thinking about Kirk Cousins, quarterback of the Minnesota Vikings, and the leader of his team and the face of his franchise and the guy making more money than any other player on that franchise, adamantly saying, I will not get vaccinated. And Vikings are 0-2, by the way. When your leader kind of sends a negative message to the locker room, you may want to watch out. But it is, on one level, yes, we can all agree on sports, on what's happening on the field, but off the field, we're seeing a lot of the same issues creep in to the world of sports.
Because I'm enjoying the football so much, a couple of things. In the NFL, the team that wins the Super Bowl this year may just be the team that deals with this the best. Now, you got to get lucky with respect to injuries and things like that, but that can be such a divisive issue. And if they can stay together, That might be the difference maker in the NFL. And the other thing, I'm saying this, I'm fearful, I don't want this to happen. We all think as fans that things have returned to normal in the NFL. No, they haven't. And this could get really ugly again very quickly.
I absolutely agree. You know, the Delta variant, some of the things we're learning about it, and there's probably almost certainly variants beyond the Delta variant that are going to be coming down the line. But you talk about the best team that handles this, or the team that handles this the best will be the last team standing. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, when they came out, I think I talked to you about this on the radio, when they said we are 100% vaccinated, all of our players, all of our coaches, all of our people in the front office, that's a leadership thing. That's Bruce Arians and Tom Brady,
right?
A leader if there ever was one, saying, follow me, do as I do, and we can get back to the promised land. And I think that's one of the reasons they're going to be hard to beat all season long. Leadership on and off the field.
I'm so with you. It's about team unity, but it's also about the fact that football players, more than anybody, they're creatures of habit. They have their routines. They want to do it the same way every day. Well, the fewer the disruptions, the fewer the departures from that schedule, the smoother the train is going to run.
Yeah, and if you have a COVID outbreak and a key player is gone for a certain amount of time, or you are, then you've got all kinds of disruptions, and then we have problems.
You know, you and I are both history buffs, and we're both science buffs, and we are in particular manned spaceflight buffs and NASA buffs. Chris, let me say, just without equivocation, I believe in American exceptionalism. I do. But in this sense, really the thing that has made us exceptional is the fact that we largely have been driven by being rational. And we've been pretty good, for the most part, institutionally, at staying consistent with some core principles. But the other thing, that being rational part is reflected in the fact that we have been the world leaders in science and have really led the way. And it's alarming to me, it's depressing to me, it's frightening to me that not only has such a huge percentage of our population turned its back on science, but there's now open rejection. There is a part of our population that if science says it, number one, I don't believe it, and number two, I will fight it. That sounds like a formula for collective suicide to me.
I believe it is. And you look at other superpowers in this world, mainly China. Do you think China is acting rationally in most of what it does to achieve the goals that it wants to achieve, you know, from the government?
From their standpoint, absolutely.
Yes, they are.
Absolutely.
We are divided. And you bring up science, Paul, and you bring up NASA, and you and I over the years have talked about the space program and Mercury and Gemini and Apollo 11 and Apollo 13, and how when things went wrong, we got the best minds together, got in a room and fixed it and told the astronauts how to fix it. Mm-hmm. And you've got a great line about duct tape, that duct tape was a big, and it's true, there was duct tape involved.
IQ meets duct tape.
Exactly.
You know, and it's so innovative, and they had to be so resourceful. But what was great is they all had scientific minds and scientific bents, and this is what that means. There are some things here that involve no guesswork, okay? This is the way the physics works, okay? And that's not a sometime rule. That's the way it works. So if we have the right plan and we execute it the right way and we calculate it the right way, it is going to succeed because it can't not succeed.
And everything you just described right there, Paul, it worked to fix the problem on Apollo 13. Otherwise, those astronauts would have never gotten home. They'd be dead somewhere floating in space right now. But the method you just described would have worked for COVID-19. We applied the scientific method. We got the greatest minds in medicine and science and mathematics even, and we came up with, and it was actually a vaccine, as you well know, because you know these things, that had been worked on for like 20 years. They've been working on this, only they fast-tracked it, and people go, oh, they just rolled it out so quick. I don't trust that vaccine. Well, 99% of the greatest scientific and medical minds on the face of this earth worked on it, and had we as an entire population embraced the science and embraced the truth and embraced the experts, we would not be in the problem we're in today. Interestingly, as bad as it is across America, you look at people talk about California and what snowflakes people in California are. You look at their current numbers in coronavirus infections and in coronavirus deaths, they're way below Texas and way below Florida because more people bought in to the mandates, to the science, to the medicine. Had we all done that, or had 95% of us done that, we would not have that much of a problem that we have today, and now might have even more eruptions down the road.
I try not to personalize this. Really, my wife's looking at me like, really? I try not to, but sometimes it's really difficult. And an issue that does bother me, when I hear actual snowflakes who lack the discipline, who lack the commitment, who lack any kind of perspective, when I hear actual snowflakes like that, because that is an element of being soft. You are soft. You're not hard enough to do what needs to be done. When they characterize the people who are behaving rationally as snowflakes, my snowbank can get a little hot.
Paul, it blows my mind. Not only like you did I grow up watching the space program, and I was in front of my television set on July 20th, 1969, when Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin landed on and walked on the moon. But my father flew B-17s in World War II, later B-47s in the Strategic Air Command. My mother, at like age 19, when my dad went to World War II, went off to England to fly B-17s, she was working in a munitions factory. You talk about Rosie the Riveter and how, back then the women weren't serving in the military, but the women served on the home front and went and worked and worked and worked. And Tom Brokaw famously called our parents' generation the greatest generation. And Paul, check. I hate to say this, and I can't believe after being the child watching the moon landing, thinking we'd go to Mars and beyond by the time I was 35 years old, and that was a long time ago. But I really think this, Paul. I think we are the worst American generation. I look at every American generation. I even look at that generation that fought the Civil War. And while I disagree with slavery and a lot of the concepts the South embraced at the time, every other generation was willing to make a commitment, was willing to do what they needed to do for their family, for their God, for their country, to make America better, to get us to the level where there was and now is American exceptionalism. And it's the people you describe that want to attack and name call people snowflakes for embracing the truth and the facts. They are the ones tearing this country down. And a democracy and a great country and the greatest country on the face of this earth is not guaranteed if you hand it to the next generation, and that next generation is willing to tear it down. And I'm seeing a lot of people willing to tear this down right here, right now.
Chris, you made, among others, a brilliant point a minute ago, and that is we had a pathway out of this. And there was no guesswork involved. Do this, get with the program, we win. Okay, because it was based on immutable facts and immutable principles. Okay, so now we go back to the sports analogy. I don't think you're a loser if you lose. I think you're a loser if you just freaking refuse to win.
Amen. Amen. And how many stories have there been, again, going back to sports and America, of people who have lost and sometimes lost cataclysmically? Apollo 1, the fire, astronauts we lost, 2 space shuttles. I mean, while we have been reaching for the stars, there have been horrible failures with horrible loss of life that could have made a lesser country say, that's it. It's not worth all of this money we're spending to reach for the stars and embrace science and learn more things at this toll of human life. Yet, every step of the way, the space program and this country embraced science and embraced the truth and learned from its mistakes. That's what drives me crazy about this quest to combat the coronavirus. People go, well, they were wrong about this. Well, this virus didn't exist in its form before 2019. We are learning things as we go, right. And science and epidemiologists and doctors are telling us what they know to the best of their knowledge every step of the way. Obviously, we know infinitely more about it now in 2021 than we did a year ago today in 2020. And people, again, this goes back, people are looking for, and they're whatever websites they're following, whatever bizarre news outlets they subscribe to. They're looking for any little excuse to tear the whole thing down. See, I told you they were wrong about this, so they must be completely wrong. And my tribe, back to tribalism, which you brought up, my tribe is right. My tribe is right. You are wrong. You're the problem. I'm right. Game over.
This is pretty harsh, but we're 19 months into this now, and I, for one, am sick and tired of it. I finally have found a litmus test that is 100% accurate. I can identify an idiot. Yes, I just said idiot. Yes, this is harsh. But as soon as I hear the words, I've done my own research, you command no more of my time.
And typically those guys who have done their own research have absolutely no science, absolutely no medical background whatsoever. It's something they heard from somebody they know, or something they read on the internet, or something that is being put out there by someone with an agenda. I see so many of these news networks and websites, and they realize, for whatever the reason, there's a certain and growing proportion of the population that loves conspiracy theories, that loves to hear that the man is coming to screw you over. I mean, how many times did we hear Bill Clinton's coming to take away your guns? Oh, Obama's coming to take away your guns. And you want to, it was never the case. There was common sense gun control to stop mass murders across this country, and especially in schools, trying to get a handle on that to stop it, that no one was ever going to come and take away your guns in the United States of America. But there is a certain percentage of the population that just wants to hear that they're coming for you. Your way of life is about to change, and they're going to come get you unless you join us and believe the way we believe. And that's kind of just like red meat for that type of person who is wanting to and willing to believe that way. And yes, the word indoctrinated. I believe there are people, lots of people in this country who have been indoctrinated to think this way. You can use that word. You can use radicalized. I believe they've been indoctrinated and radicalized. And it's very sad because they're fellow Americans, and I don't think they were born into this world and into this country to be these types of people. But they have fallen victim to being manipulated by networks, by websites, by people and organizations with agendas.
And they almost think that the more unlikely and complex and ridiculous and Rube Goldberg, the conspiracy theory, that the more credible it is. Okay, and sometimes when you see something and a foul ball is just a foul ball and a mockingbird is just a mockingbird, these people really think that you're being the simpleton because you will not jump through these endless, ridiculous, anti-intellectual hoops. The more complex it is, the more credible it becomes in their eyes.
Yeah, you're a snowflake because you are believing the truth. I mean, you are, and again, go back to, I remember that guy who went with an assault weapon into the pizza parlor in Washington, D.C. because Hillary Clinton
bust up the child porn
and a bunch
ring,
of the Democrats were apparently eating the hearts of children in the basement.
Well, you can't deny that.
Well, yeah, in the basement of this pizza parlor, and there was no basement in the pizza parlor. But it's if you, I mean, this is a Hitler concept. If you are told a lie often enough, tell the lie, tell the lie, tell the lie. At what point? The 10,000th time you hear the lie, or is it only the 328th time you hear the lie? And if there's enough people who hang out with you, who are on your team, who are on your tribe, who believe that lie, then you're probably going to start believing that lie.
And the amazing thing, and this has been proved, and it's right out of the Goebbels playbook, it's actually much easier to get people to embrace a big lie than a little one.
Boom. Which is oh so troubling. And I think maybe, life is hard for anybody. You go through this life, try to get a job, you try to find love. If you're lucky, you find it, and you have relationships in your life, you try to keep them together. And I think it is people who can tap into that and realize if you talk to somebody long enough, they've got issues, and they've got problems, and they've got concerns. And I believe that for a lot of these people, they have found a way to tap into something that has their thinks that this will solve our problems. It can't be me. It can't be that just life is hard, and I need to really work hard and find a way to navigate my way through this life better. And it will be difficult, and there will be losses, but there will also be triumphs. I think for whatever reason, this generation of ours that we've been talking about wants to blame somebody else. I didn't do this. Somebody else did it. It's not my fault that things aren't going so well. It's somebody else's fault, and it's easy to find the bad guy. And when enough people believe that this is the bad guy, and you can villainize the other side. That's one other thing I want to jump in, Paul, and I know I'm long-winded on this answer.
Go for it, man.
But this is another thing about politics that blows my mind, and you know this well. Ronald Reagan, who is often held up as the God on earth.
And the great communicator.
And he was a great communicator.
And he was.
And he was a sports play-by-play guy, Absolutely. As you well know, and did some amazing things. But famously, he was the president of the United States with his agenda, which was to the right. Tip O'Neill was the Speaker of the House, who was very liberal with his agenda, which was to the left. And as you know your history, and you were around for it, they would fight tooth and nail during the business day to get their agenda passed, but neither of them villainized each other or the other side. Neither of them said, Tip O'Neill, you hate America, you're bad for America, Ronald Reagan, vice versa. And these guys, at dinner time, would have dinner together. They would be friendly. I disagree with you, Paul Alexander. I disagree with you, Chris. But you know what? I like you. I respect you. We're fellow Americans. We all want to make this a better country. Let's go have dinner.
It's almost like the old Acme Coyote and Roadrunner cartoons. Tooth and nail all day long. Punch out, grab my lunch. See you tomorrow. Hi to the wife and kids. Right?
Yes. And that's the way it should be. I mean, ultimately, that's one of my biggest problems, and the left does it too.
True.
To demonize the other side. We're into a politics and a culture of demonization where that side wants to destroy the American way of life. That side wants to destroy America and take away everything you know, want, and love, as opposed to, that side. I don't believe the way they want to get to where they want to get to. I'd rather do it this way. So let's try to make it work my way. It's amazing. It's turned into such a culture of demonization.
If you don't agree with me, you hate America. I mean, first of all, it's illogical. It's immoral. But I'm going to use this one example, and there are myriad examples out there. But the whole thing from a couple of years ago, which still persists a little bit to this day in the NFL, with respect to kneeling during the anthem. Okay, you see this all the time. You're kneeling, you hate America. Now, why is that logical? Now, look, let me say this. We all love in different ways, and we have different symbols. And because I am of the generation that I am, and because I was taught the way I was, okay, my reflexive thing to this day during the anthem, ramrod straight, facing the flag, locked in, hand over my heart. If we're supposed to sing, I will sing badly, okay? But that's my expression of love in that environment. Why is that necessarily more loving or more respectful than somebody who respectfully takes a knee? Not because, and it's all about demonization, not because he hates America, but because he wants America to realize its potential, and that is his way of expressing that love. And I know there's a lot of eye rolling going on right now. I'll stand by that. Why is that one gesture automatically superior to the other if ultimately it's coming from the same motivation?
An outstanding point, Paul. And if we were truly Americans and embraced free speech, we would have embraced or supported when Colin Kaepernick took a knee. Now, I said this a lot on the radio at the time. I mentioned my dad flew in World War II. I had a brother who was a fighter pilot. They are both buried at Fort Sam Houston National Cemetery, about 12 rows away from each other. You can stand at my brother's headstone and you can see my father's about 12 rows away, which blows my mind every time I visit those guys. But as I told people, I understand it. When I am at a football game or wherever they play the national anthem, like you, I stand up straight, I put my hand on my heart, and I think about my father and my brother, and I get emotional. So I when the Colin Kaepernick thing was happening, I said, I understand. There are those of you, because I'm one of them, who, when the national anthem is played, we get emotional and we think of those who served in the military and maybe some of our loved ones who are no longer with us. But I think the ultimate evolution as an American and as a human being would be to say, this is my reaction. This is how Paul Alexander reacts when the national anthem is played. But America is about freedom and freedom of speech and freedom of expression, and certainly taking a knee, which he learned to do, as you well know, after speaking with a former service member who went to the University of Texas.
Absolutely.
So I mean, had he stood there and flipped off the flag, then maybe but he at first he was just sitting on the bench before he was instructed to take a knee, and he just chose to sit on the bench. And what strikes me about the entire episode, and I think most of us would agree, and nobody knows their quarterbacks like you do, and a lot of people say Colin Kaepernick's out of the league because he wasn't that good of a quarterback, although he went to a Super Bowl and had a chance to win it. But I think he lost opportunities. I think he was blackballed. He messed with billionaires' money, because when that whole Colin Kaepernick thing came down, President Trump went heavy on his Twitter account and said, this is un-American. This is the worst thing ever. He called him an SOB, among other things. Yeah.
Shoot those sons of bitches.
Yes. So NFL owners knew, if Kaepernick's on my roster, even if we need a quarterback, 40% or more of my fan base is going to turn their back and walk away, and that's a ton of revenue. But here's what it reminds me of, and you were alive for this, and there's a new multi-part documentary on Muhammad Ali by Ken Burns that has just dropped on PBS. But I remember vividly when Ali chose not to go to Vietnam. He was a conscientious objector. And even I, in my household, I loved Ali. My older brother, Greg, I grew up watching Cassius Clay and Muhammad Ali fights. But it was, you don't want to go serve in the military? Your country is calling you. Other young men are dying in Vietnam, and you won't answer the call? And as Ali famously said, I've got nothing against the North Vietnamese. They never did anything to me. I don't want to go and kill them. At the time, as you know, he was vilified. He was called anti-American. A huge segment of the country hated his guts. The prime of his boxing career was taken away from him.
You cannot challenge the courage of his convictions.
Yes.
I mean, think about what he gave up.
Yeah.
That was what should have been athletically the 3 best years of his career.
And now, over time, we look at that war and we go, that was the wrong war. It was executed improperly, by us. We made believe it or not, we can make mistakes. We made some mistakes there. And Ali is generally viewed by infinitely more people as, a leader and a man of conviction and a man who took a stand, and a courageous stand, as you mentioned.
Getting back to the anthem thing for a second. Yes, rightly, the anthem, the flag, of course that represents, part of what it represents is our military and their heroism and their ability to defend us. Okay, but let's not forget that we're not an autocracy. Okay, and our military is run by civilians, and there's a reason for that. So yes, the flag, the anthem, they stand for the military, but they stand for a lot more than that. And ultimately, what they stand for is the genius of the American Constitution. So if you're really pledging allegiance to anything, what you're pledging allegiance to is those profound principles that are contained in that document that now get bastardized all the time, that get misrepresented all the time. And again, we want to feel morally superior to the other as Americans. How many times have you been at a football game, and again, you're playing the anthem, hey, I'm your boy, I do that because that's what I want to do.
Yes.
But you'll see people the person in front of you, they're standing up. They got the hat on. They got their beer. They're not paying any attention. They're slouching, etc. But to a certain segment of our population, that person is morally superior and loves America more than somebody who is quietly and respectfully taking a knee because they think we can be better.
It's absolutely mind-blowing. And there are those in the military who realize and say, it's the old volunteer military now, unlike the Vietnam era. I volunteered to serve this country.
By the way, number 356, it was a good day.
Oh, my goodness.
Number 356 out of 365, it was a you day.
Wow, you will obviously remember that number forever. But so many in the military now realize they are a different breed of human being. They are amazing patriots and human beings. And they know, though, they are there to protect the citizenry of the United States so that you can go to a football game and slouch and drink your beer and burp during the national anthem. They are shielding you and giving you the opportunity.
And by the
through
way,
their
I'm
service.
defending their right too.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, if you're going to do that, please don't pull the moral superiority card on others.
Yes, and again, we live in such a culture, and Paul, part of it is I look at Twitter, and it's
right.
the go-to move, the default move is anger, attack, snark. Snark is mild, but anger, attack, you're awful, you suck, let me attack you. And it blows my mind because you and I were around when there was not an internet and was not a World Wide Web. You and I had encyclopedias when we wanted to learn something, or we had to go to the library when we wanted to learn something. And if you would have told 22-year-old Paul Alexander, there's going to be a device in your hand that any knowledge, anything, you have a question about anthropology, science, technology, you want to talk to anybody in the world, you want to create a podcast called Radically Rational that can be seen across the country and in New Zealand and in China. You could even do it. I mean, you've got a great studio here, but you could even do it on a phone this is the most amazing technological device. It's like something out of Star Trek that Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock and Dr. McCoy would have marveled over. And yet, so much of it is used to attack one another. It is used to say, I hate you. I deplore you. You should die because I'm right and you're wrong, and I'm in my tribe, and my tribe is the only tribe, and if you're not in my tribe, we can kill you because my tribe is the way. It blows my mind.
It's tragic, but let me add this. These people use this wondrous piece of technology to tell everybody how horrible technology and science and medicine and math is.
And exactly. Boom. And it was created by everything we talked about earlier, by the scientific method, by trial and error, by adhering with discipline to the facts. And when there was something that went wrong, you go back to the drawing board like on Apollo 13 and you try it again until you get it right, until you create this piece of technology that works. Yes, that is one of the greatest ironies ever. Your anti-science, your anti-truth people, your science deniers, your medicine deniers are using maybe the greatest piece of technology developed by science and tech ever on the face of this earth to deny science, technology, and the scientific method and the truth.
It's mind-boggling. And speaking of the truth, remember when lying had at least a degree of stigma? Where we thought lying was a bad thing, where somebody being a liar, being called a liar, that was not exactly a compliment. It has gotten to the point where people don't even think of it as a pejorative. Yeah. Everybody lies. If you ain't lying, you ain't trying.
Yeah.
Okay, so untethered from facts, granting ourselves the license to invent things that clearly aren't true and to deny things that clearly are. I don't know about you, but if somebody asked me in 15 seconds, come up with the most accurate definition of insanity you can come up with, that'd pretty much be it.
Yeah, and we even in politics, and again, it's on both sides. You know, they'll have a politician saying something today, and they'll show you a clip from a year ago of he or she saying the exact opposite.
And there's no stigma. Yeah. There's no stigma. No, right. Yeah, life goes on.
Absolutely none. And you're right. When we were growing up, if a politician, a public servant, was proven to be a liar, your career was over. You could never be a public servant or a politician again. And now it's just part of the game. It's
Howard
just
Dean lets out a Greedo and he's done.
Yeah.
That was not that long ago.
Yeah, and someday, and I won't go deep into it, but it was an isolated mic.
Yeah.
Saying he could not hear himself think. You know all about microphones and television and technology. So while he did let that shriek out, he was doing it because he couldn't even hear himself. he effectively had no hearing.
And so what anyway?
When he went, so he went, yeah. But yeah, so yeah, Howard Dean, your race for the presidency is now over because of Des Moines, Iowa, and what happened.
Where did we get this anti-science bent, and where did the conspiracy thing start? I think it's got to be, in my mind, one of two dates. It either has to be November 22nd, 1963, or July 20th, 1969.
Wow.
Got a preference?
My goodness. Both just stopped me in my tracks. And obviously, the first date, November 22nd, 1963, when President Kennedy was assassinated, I believe that was the moment America truly lost its innocence and its ideology.
The music died.
It was Camelot. It was Jackie and President Kennedy and we were. I mean, he was the guy on May 5th, 1961, who says, I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the earth. He was the guy.
Where did he say that?
Before Congress, at a joint session of Congress.
But there was another address on the field
right.
at Rice Stadium.
Yeah. Well, that one was, we choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things. Not because they are easy, but because they are hard. That was
we choose.
Yes,
for the same reason Rice chooses to play Texas.
Yeah, exactly. And he joked about that as well. It was absolutely brilliant. It was so I mean, he was the guy with the dream and dreamed of making America as great as it already was, even greater. And then then he's gone. Then he's assassinated. And we won't go deep into this, but oh, by the way, Lyndon Johnson on Sunday didn't wait until Monday. Kennedy's murdered on Friday. Lyndon Johnson assembles the Joint Chiefs of Staff in the White House on Sunday to increase troop levels in Vietnam. Didn't wait till Monday. I just, and here I am going a little conspiracy theory, but I find that peculiar. But I am amazed, and what an irony, Paul, if it was July 20th, 1969, when we landed on the moon, that it's like, and I'm amazed too, because we got there, Apollo 13 happened, we canceled earlier, there was going to be Apollo 18, Apollo 19, we stopped after Apollo 17, and I mentioned this to you on the phone yesterday, and it blew my mind, because we now have a sizable number of people, and a lot of millennials, because they heard this from someone else, who go, oh, that was fake, that moon landing was fake. Bill Maher, on Real Time with Bill Maher on HBO, just the most recent episode I saw, brought up the moon landing, and he had to like qualify it. He goes, and one of the greatest feats we've ever done. And for those of you who don't believe we went there, you have to admit, for it to have worked, it would have been one of the greatest pranks and hoaxes of all time. So now when you bring up the moon landing, apparently you have to cater to this group of people who believe we never did it, and therefore desecrating the names of men like Neil Armstrong, the 3 Apollo astronauts, Ed White, Gus Grissom, and Roger Chaffee, who gave their lives in Apollo 1, and others. It absolutely blows my mind that we are at this level in this country.
You're insulting them in their memory. But do you realize that it took literally 500,000 Americans working full-time at the absolute cutting edge of the spear to make that happen? Okay, so a couple of things here. You're going to insult 500,000 Americans, but beyond that, if you know anything about human communication, like there's going to be some secret conspiracy that 500,000 people are in on.
Exactly. And as we know, from any conspiracy, from any secret, it comes out. It ultimately comes out. But as you describe it, Paul, and if anybody hasn't read about it or done the research, what it took for us to get to the moon. When Kennedy said that in 1961, that was insane. So 9 years from now, we're going to go from where we are, and we got rockets blowing up on the launch pad, to we're going to go to the moon and bring those guys back to Earth. It's insane. But as you say it and describe it, Paul, and as I think back to it, could we do that now? Would we have the commitment to work and believe in truth and science and fact and work together as a country for one mission?
Clearly not, because we keep kicking the can down the road. As you said, we all assumed that we would have been to Mars, heck, I don't know, 2 decades ago and had moved beyond that now. But instead, we just lost the national will. And we have greater technology than ever, but I just don't know that we can muster the kind of commitment to do something like that. And it was so emblematic of American leadership of this world and optimism, which brings me to the next thing I want to ask you about. There was a song that hit the charts in the 80s by Donald Fagen of Steely Dan, but it was a solo record. IGY, International Geophysical Year. And if you go, what a beautiful world it will be. The whole concept behind that song was that it was a guy in the 1980s that was looking forward essentially to 2021.
Yeah.
And the perspective was, and yeah, I know it's Steely Dan, so I know sometimes there can be a little tongue-in-cheek there, but it was that we really have the ability to cure all these problems. Unlike previous generations of Americans, there were some crises they faced that they couldn't do one damn thing about. Okay, we really can fix this. We can all have a really good life, programmed by fellows with compassion and vision, and that's now just greeted with scorn. If you go back and hear that, and you realize that they're talking about this point in time and where they thought we would be, and contrast that with where we are, yeah, I'll shed a tear. Yes, I will.
For everybody listening, if you remember the song, go listen to it again. IGY by Steely Dan. If you haven't, it's right there for you on YouTube. You can have it in 10 seconds. What a beautiful world this could be. What a glorious time to be free. And you just nailed it, Paul. All of our problems could be solved. Mm-hmm. You look at where we are now as a people, and with technology, the coronavirus could be in the rearview mirror. Hunger, homelessness, the drought in the West, in California. We have oil pipelines that go from Canada down to Texas. If we needed to, we could come up with the technology to pipe water into the West from where it is now flooding in the East. All of these, we went to the moon. We can pipe water into the West if we need. You've got an ocean out there. Israel desalinates the water. If we applied technology, we could desalinate water, and water would not be a problem for anyone. Third world countries where people are dying of starvation, we could fix that. We don't want to. We don't want to. No.
We just don't have the will for it.
Yeah.
And we've mentioned our reverence legitimately for the World War II generation. And they do represent freedom and defense of freedom. But we've lost almost all of them now. And I'm aware of your family and your family's background. I'm very much aware of that. I will tell you this. My father was one of a handful of survivors of the Rapido River Massacre. Mm-hmm. Look it up. My wife's father was a survivor of the Bataan Death March.
Oh, my God. Look that up if you don't. Yeah.
So you might want to tone some of that stuff down with me every now and then. But think about the World War II generation. Yeah, we've got ration stuff. Yeah, we're going to take extra jobs. Yeah, we're going to turn our lights off at night so that any bombers can't see us. Yeah. We'll make this sacrifice in the name of preserving real freedom and the bastardization of the concept of freedom. Freedom is not about gluttony. Freedom is not about selfishness. Freedom is not being able to act on your every whim like a child. And it is a very childish behavior. And these very people say, well, with freedom comes responsibility. Then why don't you show some responsibility?
Which takes us to the mask, Paul. And you talk about sacrifices and the Bataan Death March and turning out the lights and rationing food and rationing gasoline. And I won't wear a mask because it infringes upon my freedom, or there's the line out there, I won't wear a mask because my health is my personal choice, where if you paid attention to the science and the medicine, the main reason we wear a mask is so that you don't kill other people, so that you don't infect a 22-year-old who's going to go home and see his 78-year-old grandmother, and then she's going to die. And as while the stereotype is Old people die from the coronavirus. More and more now, school kids are getting infected. I saw a story last week about a couple. He was 37, she was 35. They had 5 kids, including a newborn. They both got the coronavirus. They both went to the hospital. They are both gone. Those 5 kids will now be raised by grandparents, and I pray to God those grandparents will live long enough to raise them. So it affects us all. And yes, again, I go back to not only the greatest generation, but we are, if we're not the worst generation in American history, we are working hard to attain that title.
I just don't understand this redefinition of freedom, because right now anything that smacks of just human decency or any social obligation to our society is viewed as an impingement on your freedom. No, I would say it's self-imprisoning, because it means that we're never going to solve our problems. But the idea that anytime you feel any collective responsibility, that is somehow slicing into the American idea of freedom, it's the total antithesis of the American idea of freedom. And I don't understand. We ask you to wear a seatbelt, too. You can't smoke in public, which is maybe the best analogy, because the concept is your freedom ends at my nose, my lungs, okay? It's not like having to wear a motorcycle helmet. I don't want to see your brain splattered all over the curb, but knock yourself out, buddy. But you have no right to kill me and kill others, and that doesn't have anything to do with freedom. And to see it misrepresented in these highfalutin, would-be noble terms, I just find to be just completely sickening. But it's everybody for himself now, and it is 2 and only 2 tribes, and everybody feels untethered from the truth. You were mentioning the fact people talking about science being wrong, particularly with respect to the pandemic. Not really. Okay, all of these scientific mathematical projections have been startlingly accurate. And like you said, science is cumulative. You know what you know when you know it, and then you add on that. That's just kind of the way science works. But we have a bunch of people who the only thing they would use a science book for is as a coaster for their beer. And we are suffering as a result. Again, I can't help being football guy. You're only a loser when you refuse to win.
Absolutely. And there is nobility in trying, and if you try and try again, and this goes back to what you said about science, this is how you figure it out. This is how you get from here to there and get to the solution. But back to selfishness for a little bit. When did that happen? When did that happen? Where it's all about me, and you will not infringe upon my rights. I mean, the latest open mic night awful thing in America are these school board meetings now, where these parents just want to come and scream on the mic, and they want to point at school board members and call them names and call them anti-American and saying, I know where you live. So it's like, you're on the school board, I know where you live. And this is happening to not only abortion doctors, obviously, and that's a big issue right now, but doctors who are recommending you wear a mask and recommending you get the vaccine, and doctors who are saying, yes, there probably should be mandates for masks for kids in school to protect one another and to protect the people they go home to. And there are adult parents saying, I know where you live, meaning I'll come find you, come to your house, and I will do you harm because you are trying to protect children and our population. It is absolutely mind-boggling to me.
I wish I could take credit for this meme, but I can't, and I don't know who to give proper attribution to. But I saw this, and I at once, I was laughing so hard, I was almost blowing snot bubbles across the room, but I also wanted to cry. Yeah, I don't turn my headlights on when I drive after dark. You don't want to get hit? Stay home, bitch.
Boom. That's it. That's the attitude. That's the attitude. Yeah. This is about me. I don't want to turn them on. And I have the freedom. I'm an American. I have the freedom to not turn my lights on because it's all about me.
Okay, I'm going to ask you the question. And this is the question. We've identified the problem. We've surveyed the landscape. Is there a path out of this?
Paul, you know me and I know you, and you're a very optimistic man. I'm a very optimistic guy. It doesn't look good to me right now. All I can imagine is the best we can do is in our own sphere of influence. And this is why I love that you have chosen Radically Rational. My gosh, we need more of this, more of what you're doing, more of straight talk and the truth and reasoning behind it and facts behind it. I think the best, I'm not optimistic about the future, but I do know that, there have been times of great darkness. There have been great wars throughout history where lots of people died and lots of people killed one another. But yet I'm sure there were moments where people loved their community, loved their family, loved their friends. So I think the best we can do is be the best people we can be, and where possible, shine our light and shine that light for other people. I mean, I get outraged. You hear my outrage here talking to you at some of these people, but unfortunately, being outraged at them and being outraged at one another is probably not going to solve the problem.
It's not.
So I think we need to the best of our ability, and I need to work on this, and I am working on this, is to become the best person we can be, to have empathy, to care for our fellow citizens and our fellow human beings on this planet, even if we believe that at the moment they are very misinformed and they're on the wrong path. And I think we have to love them anyway, and I think we have to gently try to show them another way, which you're doing it here with Radically Rational. You're not only doing it with facts and with logic, you're doing it with entertainment and with fun and with football analogies. And I mean, this is what you do. You are a communicator. You've been in television and radio forever. This is your vein of gold. This is your path. You are uniquely qualified to do this. Other people, you might be a teacher. You might work. I have met some of the greatest people at HEB. During the pandemic, they were frontline workers.
They were magnificent.
I have never, in my entire experience since the pandemic hit, and even before, I've never had a bad experience with an HEB checker or an HEB employee. And again, do the math. I believe in math. If they encounter, 1,000 people a day, 2,000 people a day, if 30% of those people have the virus, or even 10% of those people have the virus, how exposed to the virus have they been? So, I mean, if you're working for HEB, if you're working at a bank, if you're working, if you're a plumber, whatever you're doing, you are going to encounter other people. And I think the best thing you can do is live by example. My life is my message, and where possible, try to help people better understand the way this world works.
Chris, I want to thank you for your guest column that's on our Radically Rational website at radicallyrational.com. I mean, we're honored to have you on there. The one thing we can't do is quit. Okay, I have come to regard perseverance as the master human virtue, the one from which all others flow. You are an absolute model of that. I have never seen you blink. I've never seen you quit. And we've used several NASA historical examples here. This may be the coolest story I've ever heard. One time at Mission Control during the Apollo program, late at night after a long work day, there's a janitor who is cleaning the floor. And a reporter was in there because he'd been working a long day too. One guy in there, and he's sweeping the floor. And the reporter asked the janitor, "This is so cool. What are you doing?" And he said, "Sir, I am helping to put an American on the moon." I mean, boom. Where did we lose that?
Yeah, and it's so true. I mean, he's part of the mission. He's part of the machine, the organization that put a man on the moon. And yet, I don't see us able to do. You know, I love the space program. I'm loving these privatized. I'm cool with it too. Space missions. If somebody can make that happen, but and what's I think sad for you and for I is we lived through that. As young people, we watched America achieve the great. To me, landing and walking on the moon is the greatest achievement in the history of mankind. You know, we came in, and the line on the plaque, we came in peace for all mankind. What is more noble than that? And to go from that, and you and I, as children, thinking what a beautiful world it could be, what a glorious time to be free. We are going to live in this world in 2021 that is going to be darn near utopia, and it has gotten so much worse than it should be. It's troubling, but you're right. Can't quit. We like the scientists on Apollo 13. We got to go back to the drawing board. What we've been doing hasn't been working. Get me some duct tape. Get me Gene Kranz on the phone. See what he's up to over there as the flight director. Get me the best scientists and the best minds in here, and let's try it again. Let's try to have a better day tomorrow. And I think that's the best we can do.
Stand in the pocket and keep throwing. Chris Duel, it's been an absolute honor to have you on Radically Rational. We enjoy doing this so much, but you brought a perspective that really, I think, captures what we want the concept of Radically Rational to be all about. Because you got to have reason, but you have to have the passion and the commitment to follow that reason as well. Again, thank you so much, my friend, and I always look forward to the fact that you're kind enough to invite me on your sports show, which is absolute top flight. It's something I look forward to every day, and we have been honored to have you here today.
You first, and I say it all the time because it's true. Every time you come on our show, which is Fridays at 7:05 on Ticket 760 in San Antonio, shameless plug, and AM 1300 The Zone in Austin. This man is on the show live on the radio, and it is also, you elevate our show. I mean, I think we got a very good show. When you come on, it's like we go up to we launch and we go up into the stratosphere, which is cool. And I'm not, I think it was George Orwell who said this, and I may be wrong, but it reminds me of what you're doing here at Radically Rational. The line wasn't, I'm paraphrasing and I'll botch it a little bit, but in a time of great deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. What you do in your life, and now you're doing it on Radically Rational, is you're telling the truth, and you're celebrating the truth, and there are not enough truth tellers out there creating a platform and using their platform like you're doing, like Joe is doing, the entire operation here. So I applaud it. I'm a fan. I celebrate it, and keep on keeping on. Keep doing what you're doing.
The one thing I can promise is we will not quit. This has been really an extraordinary edition of Radically Rational, the podcast. We again invite you to visit our website, radicallyrational.com. We got daily videos there. We have all of our previous podcasts archived there. We've got a daily news blog, a daily sports blog, and yeah, we take this stuff seriously, but we don't take ourselves seriously. If we're not making you smile, we're not doing our jobs. Chris Duel, again, thank you so much. Remember, we're radically rational. We're not crazy, but some of y'all pretty sketchy.